Well, Dr. Farley, talk a little bit about your background and how it got you to what you do today.
It's funny. I'm Native American, and when I was very young, I was 7 years old, my father was traveling a lot. My mother wasn't around a lot. And we had a neighbor that had married a Chinese lady during World War
Mm.
II. She brought her father over. He was a Chinese physician, an MD, and had a grandson almost the same age as me
Hmm.
within 2 months. So he started teaching us, and he started teaching us for several years, many years, until I was 12. At that time, he was very elderly, and he asked if I had relatives in New York, which I did, and he had a student that he knew in New York, so he sent me to study under him, and I lived with my grandmother. My grandmother had come off the reservation in North Carolina. She was Cherokee, and lived with her and studied from this Filipino physician that actually was teaching Chinese medicine. And after I graduated from high school, I was asked to find a school actually in this area, in the DC
Hmm.
metropolitan area, to continue my studies under Dr. Suyong Cha, which I did. And again, he was Korean, but again, it was Oriental medicine. So from the time I was, actually before I was 7, I was 4 when I started with Dr. Chen. From the time I was 4 till I was in my late 30s, I actually studied Oriental medicine. At the same time, I went to school initially for psychology, and after that, I decided I wanted to go into medicine. So I transferred to George Washington University, got my Bachelor of Science there, or my degree in zoology there, and took forensic pathology and forensic physiology at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. Uh, I then opened up a practice. At the same time, I was acting as a forensic pathology and forensic physiology consultant with the Justice Department of Oriental medicine, which at the time was very new. I'm
Hmm.
aging myself, but at the time there was very little of that being done here. Um, After doing that for several years uh, and being very successful at it, I decided I still had a lot more to learn, and I was interested in my own family heritage. And there was a school in North Carolina called the Native American Studies Institute, which was a naturopathic college. And it was a 5-year program, extensive training in not only biochemistry, but phytochemistry or plant chemistry and the interactions. And during that period of time, you also had an opportunity, or it wasn't an opportunity, it was a requirement to run the clinic for a year, your last year there. And you had to have had previous medical degree to get into it. It was a very special school. It's no longer there, unfortunately. The president died, and his daughter sold the property, and the school disappeared. Uh, it was at that school where I actually learned a lot more of not just what herbs work to do what they do, but why in many instances it's much better to use the old whole herb rather than what the pharmaceutical companies have done, and that's take specific phytochemicals from plants and do molecular copies of them or stereoisomers of them because they don't work the same. The simplest example I can give you that all of your viewers would identify with is aspirin, salicylic acid. If you take aspirin by itself, it can cause gastric ulcers, bleeding. Native Americans and herbalists have used the willow tree, willow bark, ground, and it provides salicin. Has no side effects, doesn't create ulcers like aspirin does, but it still has all the same positive properties. And that's because the other phytochemicals in that plant actually negate the harmful effects of the acylic acid. So when I was done with that education, I moved to Florida. And when I moved to Florida, I started to practice as a naturopath, and also started teaching physicians.